One of the most influential politicians in French politics, and I dare say European politics, Marine Le Pen, faces the prospect of not being able to run for president of the French Republic in 2027 after she was convicted of embezzlement and sentenced, and barred from running for public office for 5 years. She was also given a prison sentence, a portion of which has been suspended. She'll spend the rest behind bars, but it's all upheaval in French politics as even her staunchest rivals and critics are shocked and disappointed by the ruling of the judge to effectively take Marine Le Pen out of the running for that French presidency. I'll get feedback from a Jamaican living in France, and later on in the program we'll hear what the Finance Minister Favour Williams has to say about the recovery of the Jamaican economy following the 2 quarters of consecutive decline to close out the calendar year 2024. A lot to put into it, but lead story starts right now on CVM TV. So the question, what now for the French far right? Because the leader, Marine Le Pen, she has been barred from running in the 2027 presidential election. She's also been given a prison sentence, a monetary fine because of her conviction for embezzlement. Just what is the issue that has caused one of the most popular and populist leaders in French politics to be facing this Waterloo moment now? We've captured the essence of that for you in this piece.
Marine Le Pen, the leader of France's far-right National Rally Party and 3-time presidential candidate, saw a dent or possibly the end of her political future on Monday when a court ruling banned her from running for public office for 5 years. This landmark ruling knocked French politics into chaos, as Le Pen has been leading in polls and is considered to be the frontrunner for the 2027 presidential race. Found guilty of embezzlement, Le Pen was also given 4 years imprisonment, with 2 to be served under house arrest and 2 suspended, which would not apply pending appeal. This conviction comes at a time when the French political scene is already deeply polarized. As the face of the far-right politics in France, Le Pen has cultivated a loyal following. She has long championed making the party's image softer when compared to her father and former leader of the party, Jean-Marie Le Pen. She argued that the ruling was politically motivated and aimed at stifling her party's voice and her chance at the highest office in the land. For the National Rally, Le Pen's conviction represents either a significant challenge or a moment of growth for the party's credibility and its future in French politics. Her conviction may also impact the party's future prospects. The National Rally has been attempting to shed its reputation as a fringe party and gain broader support from mainstream voters. However, legal setbacks like this could reinforce the perception that the party is an outlier, potentially hindering its efforts to win over more centrist or conservative voters. Le Pen's conviction is expected to have broader political ramifications in France. The ruling is likely to galvanize both her supporters and her detractors, further polarizing the electorate. The far right may rally around her, while critics of her policies will see the conviction as validation of the dangers posed by her rhetoric. Moreover, the ruling could further polarize the debate over globalization. Le Pen supporters often frame their opposition to globalization as a defense of French culture and values. However, critics argue that her rhetoric fosters division and hate. The conviction raises the stakes in the already contentious debate, with both sides of the political spectrum using it as a rallying point. Whether this conviction will help heal the rift or deepen divisions in France remains to be seen. But for now, we discuss on Lead Story. Courtney Lewis for Lead Story.
Certainly not a verdict that I saw coming. After the break, Edward Boucher. Testing, testing. Edward, just ensuring that you're hearing me.
Yes, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Excellent.
Okay. I'm low. All right, so I'll project as much as possible. Okay.
Back with us on Lead Story. We're going international with this story, and I'm moving immediately to introduce my guest, Edward Boucher. He's the president of JAM in France, the Association of Jamaican Nationals in France. You know the time, you see the time, so it's a very odd hour for him, but he's consented to doing this interview and has stayed up. We really appreciate it. Well, good morning to you, Edward, but good evening. Good evening, good morning is what I'm trying to say.
Bonsoir, bonsoir, George. How are you?
I'm very good. And how are you?
I'm well. I'm well.
All right. Tell me about this thing that has caused upheaval in French politics. Marine Le Pen is hated by her rivals, I think it would be fair to say. But even among them, shock and surprise, shock and disappointment, shock and surprise about the extent that the judge went to in its conviction and its sentencing of Marine Le Pen. How is this going down on the ground where you are in France?
Well, George, this is what we would describe as bangarang back in Jamaica. It is really all over the place in France at the moment as in terms of French politics. Of course, Marine Le Pen has been controversial because of the history of the Le Pen family. They have been the face of anti-immigration, France first, nationalism type politics for a number of years. But we're looking at a situation where nationalism is on the rise in Europe and also, well, we could say across the world with even Donald Trump's election. So Le Pen would be somebody similar to like a Donald Trump in terms of her views on France being first, let's take up care of the French people, the French economy, let's buy French, and of course, let's not have immigration. So that has been the nature to a certain extent of who the Le Pen family, or what the Le Pen family stands for. Now, Marine Le Pen has been very, very popular because unlike her father, she has been very careful in the image that she gives of herself and of her party. You might not remember this, but she actually booted her father out of the same party when she took over because she wanted to, soften the stance of her party. And now she is leading in the polls. She's at 37% in one of the most popular polls here in France in the first round, which is 17 points ahead of her nearest rival. So it gives you an idea of the magnitude of this ruling by the courts.
Yeah. You mentioned the fact that, of course, she's the early favorite for the election in 2027. We must place on record the fact that the current president, is ineligible to run for a third term based on the rules of French politics. So there is no, as yet, strong alternative to Marine Le Pen. So having been unsuccessful 4 times previously, the feeling was that her time had finally come. And for this setback, she's saying that the court has acted in a political manner and that this is more of a political verdict than a verdict based on the merits of the case. Across France, is this view the popular view, or are people saying, well, the court got it right?
Most people have been denouncing the verdict, including some of her staunchest rivals, for the pure and simple reason that what the court found her guilty of, a number of these other political parties have been practicing the same thing. And basically what it is that these smaller parties, because of the nature of how European members of parliament are selected, it's easier to be elected as a member of the European Parliament because what they do is a percentage-based vote. So, for example, you might have France being allocated, say, 20 seats to the European Parliament, and based on the percentage, it's a one-off round for the election. So you might have a smaller party like Le Pen, who might get, say, 15% and is allocated 2 or 3 seats in the European Parliament. So what they've been doing is using this access to the European Parliament funds to finance their local political affairs or
Yes.
in France. So you might find that they are working as an official member of the European Parliament,
Yes.
but they're using the funds to finance their French movement.
Yes.
And it is very common in a number of the parties here. And some of the other opposition leaders are actually very concerned because they too might very well meet the same fate. So a lot of them have been criticizing the court, saying that the court has gone a bit overboard with this one.
Yeah, and to support what you say about how commonplace it is for smaller parties across Europe to do this thing, Nigel Farage, the man who is arguably the most popular man in British politics after the Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, certainly more popular than Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Tories, when he was with UKIP, it was easier for him to get into the European Parliament as a UKIP politician than to get a seat in the House of Commons, something he didn't get until the last election, despite his several previous attempts. And many people know that it was the funding that came through the European Parliament that allowed Farage and his sympathizers and his colleagues to run UKIP on the ground in England. So it's a similar situation with the National Rally in France, where membership of the European Parliament, and they say over 11 years that she used £4 million of European Parliament funds to effectively run the National Rally in France, and that's why she's gotten into trouble. So here's the thing now, Edward. With the situation as it is, the National Rally has a problem. Do they go with their youngster, the president, the paper president of the party, Jordan Bardella, as the candidate for 2027? Do they rally around him? Or are they saying that Le Pen is still the woman and that every move will be made to ensure that she is legitimately presidential candidate when the time comes?
Well, the National Rally, they've been quite strategic in how they have approached their French politics. So we have had Jordan Bardella, who I think he's now 29. He's
Yes.
the head of the party. She's the head of the party in the parliament. He's the head of the machinery, if you will. So they have been working in tandem, and pretty much when we had the legislative elections earlier last year, it was clear that he was the one who led the campaign to be prime minister, because in France you've got the president who is the head of state, and you
Yes.
have the prime minister who is the head of government.
Yes.
So they have been working together to a certain extent. And the thing is, Jordan Bardella is as popular as Le Pen. So it's not really seen as weakening in terms of their position. Of course, Bardella is seen as being too young. This is someone who has not completed his university degree. So there are a number of people who are saying he's not quite ready, but of course he's still very charismatic, very eloquent, and he is just as popular as
Yeah.
Le Pen. He's
Yeah.
actually the second most popular politician here in France. So there are many who are now thinking that as a plan B, the National Rally will still be very, very strong.
Well, I tell you what, this court ruling has tied everything up in knots. I don't buy the argument that Bardella is not ready. Many thought that when Le Pen took the party from her father that she was not ready, and it has taken her several segments of work to get the party to this point. And just when it appears as if her time has come for assumption of that French presidency, a court is taking away her opportunity to even contest the election. That must be gut-wrenching. But it's a fascinating time for French politics.
Yeah. Well, we got some update just a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
The Court of Appeal in Paris, they have said that they will hear the case and they will give a verdict in 2026.
Great.
Which would be next year, which would be 1 year ahead of the polls. So
yeah.
there is that opening there that was made just now in France, that was announced just a couple of hours ago. And of course, they have launched a petition online. They have got over 300,000 signatures to that petition, and the party is claiming that they've had 10,000 members overnight who have signed up to join the party. So this seems to be galvanizing the party as opposed to weakening it. So it's very interesting times.
Absolutely so, and it's just the situation that Marine Le Pen wants. Her against the system and the people joining her in pushing back against the system. Edward Boucher, it's been fascinating. Thank you very much, man. You're very much up on your politics, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's the president of JAM in France, the Association of Jamaican Nationals in France, Edward Boucher. Very, very informed and on top of his French politics. Break time. Back with more after these on Lead Story.
Check, check. 1, 2, mic. Check. 1, 2. Hey. 1, 2. Check. 1, 2. Yeah. 1, 2. Yeah. Okay. 1, 2.
Welcome back to Lead Story. In the dying embers of the program, we turn to matters coming out of the Parliament moments ago because the Finance Minister, Favour Williams, commented on the performance of the economy where value added is concerned, real value added. You can refer to it simply as GDP. And her response follows news from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, that the economy did indeed decline in the fourth quarter of 2025, or 2024 rather, declining by about 0.8%. The Finance Minister says the decline was not as significant as projected by the PIOJ, that's the Planning Institute of Jamaica. And then she said, from that point of decline, what the economic recovery is looking like is a V-shaped recovery. So if you draw one stroke from the top down, which represents a decline, she says the preliminary estimates are that the economy grew in the first quarter this year. That's between January and March. So January, February, and March, she says preliminary estimates suggest that the economy grew. So from that decline late in 2024, you go up in 2025 in the first quarter. So that's how you get the V-shaped recovery. That's the School of Economic Theory. Thanks to my lecturers for putting the lessons in my head all those years ago. So here's what she had to say in Parliament about that situation.
It is important for Jamaicans to understand that PIOJ and Statin provide us with quarterly and annual GDP figures. PIOJ provides us with an estimate of GDP growth earlier in the following quarter, while Statin provides a definitive GDP growth figure. Madam Speaker, while the GDP growth figure for the December quarter is negative 0.8%. It is significantly better than the estimate PIOJ thought that we would have experienced, which is negative 1.8%. PIOJ has indicated that the areas of variation were primarily in wholesale/retail and tourism. This means those sectors did better than anticipated. If I could get a chart up on the screen, you will see a distinct V-shaped recovery following the devastation of Hurricane Beryl in the third quarter of 2024 and the follow-on negative impact of Tropical Storm Raphael in the fourth quarter of the calendar year 2024. This chart, Madam Speaker, shows GDP growth seasonally unadjusted, meaning year over year. So we're looking at fourth quarter 2024 versus fourth quarter 2023. There's another way, Mr. Speaker, that statin also represents GDP growth, and that is seasonally adjusted, which compares, for example, the fourth quarter of 2024 versus the third quarter of 2024. And that chart looks quite different, Mr. Speaker. You can see, well, if the charts were going, Mr. Speaker, you could see the recovery in other areas as well. You would see a chart that shows the recovery in mining and quarrying from a deep decline of negative 17.4% in the third quarter and the significant improvement since then. Likewise, Madam Speaker, in the hotels and restaurant sector, the recovery is quite evident there as well, moving from the negative 4.9 to a significantly smaller negative of 0.3%. Madam Speaker, as a government, we remain committed to our growth agenda, which we know is sometimes disrupted by devastating weather events, and that is why our efforts over several years to build buffers to help protect this nation and our budgets are so incredibly important to maintain.
All right, so the opposition spokesman on finance, Julian Robinson, he had some questions for the finance minister, just to get a better understanding of what the government is interpreting the numbers to mean.
The figures confirm today what I think most of us knew, that we've had 2 negative quarters of growth. From your own chart, the one before, you would notice that we have had a pretty steep decline from 2020 in the growth rate. While positive, there's been a deceleration all the way up to just before Hurricane Beryl hit us. The question I have for you, Minister, while I know you would not have official data at this stage, I know you would have some preliminary data about Q1, which would have finished yesterday. And if you could indicate whether, from your preliminary data, whether Q1 2025 is pointing in a positive direction to take us out of negative growth or not. And really it underscores the need to accelerate the growth-inducing strategies to ensure we can spend the capital budget in a timely manner, which we haven't done for the last 3 years, and to ensure that the other measures to release capital to the MSME sector, etc., are done so that these numbers can improve. Because, as I said, notwithstanding the shock, the first chart shows a steady decline over the last 3 years, which would have put us in negative growth with or without Hurricane Beryl. So if you could indicate, as I said, I know you wouldn't have final numbers, what Q1 2025 is looking like.
Mr. Speaker, the last time PIOJ presented, which again, PIOJ gives us a preliminary estimate, they anticipate that we would return to economic growth in the January to March quarter 2025 with projections within the range of 0.1 to 1%. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, so she says 0.1 to 1%, meaning could be 0.1, 0.2, it could be 0.8, it could be 0.9, it could be 1, that range. But the PIOJ does expect that the economy should go the other way in the January to March quarter, which is up from the consecutive down it registered in the last 2 quarters of 2024. Be mindful that we are now in the second quarter of the calendar year, the start of the 2025-26 fiscal year, which is what the budget debate completed last week was all about, this fiscal year that we are in now. And of course, effective today, April 1, the income tax threshold moves from $1.7 million to $1.8 million as part of the 3-point move to $2 million per annum. And the opposition leader has said that, look, their plan to push the income tax threshold to $3 billion, he says it remains under review for them to see how it could be worked out. He says there are certain numbers that are not available to them, but you know, they're looking, and when they, if and when they get into power, they'll be able to look at all the numbers to determine how they can lift the threshold to that point. So a lot happening on the political front, especially where the economy is concerned. That's my time here on Lead Story. I make way for the news at 7.